And so what I'm going to do is share my screen so we can go through the course content. So everybody has access to Canvas. And when you log in, this is the home page that you should see. So you guys see this?
Yes.
You guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
see it. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so you probably have a chance to poke around in here and look at the syllabus and schedule, which we'll do. Then this part here, safety videos and lab techniques quiz. This is a module that you should focus on, especially next week and before we meet for our first lab. So on Friday of next week, we'll go over what's in this module, but you should, and you can just poke around, watch the videos, take the quiz if you want. Yeah, just learn as much as you can in there. This is the module where we enter into our meetings, and then there's some other stuff at the bottom that you can't see as a student. But anyway, besides that main page, there's the toggles over here, and the assignments is probably the most important of those. So here we have all our assignments, 10 assignments that you have to do. And this is the first one that I'm going to be talking about after we go over any of your questions and the schedule and the syllabus. So, and like I said, or maybe I haven't said this, if you guys have any questions at all, just interrupt me. That way you'll catch my attention. I miss a lot of the stuff that's going on in the chat. So just go ahead and holler, and we'll stop and address your question. All right, so here's our syllabus and schedule. The class syllabus opens up with pretty much the standard information, you know, what the class is about and how this class goes hand in hand with the lectures at Mesa College. I recommend that you take the lab and the lecture at whichever college you decide to, whether it's Miramar City or Mesa. I know for a fact that our labs mesh much better with our lectures than they do, say, at Miramar. For example, I think that we start off with kinetics in our class, and another college, Miramar City, they might be starting off with equilibrium. So that's just something that maybe you should be aware of. All right, so you look down at this syllabus, and it talks about the course objectives, some of the topics that we're going to go over that go with the co-requisite, the 201 lecture. Now, to get into this class, of course, you have to pass 200 lab. Here we have the textbook and supplies. You could get this textbook, I believe, at the bookstore, or you could get the lab manual. That's what we're calling the textbook, right at Montezuma Publishing. So that's at State, and that's who publishes this lab manual. Now, having said that, maybe you don't have access to it, and that's okay for the first few weeks anyway, because the first labs I'm posting in Canvas, and I'll show you where they are. So that's not something that you have to worry about right away. When we meet for labs, you should bring your calculator, and this is going to be great because you need to know how to use the calculator for lecture and stuff. So hopefully you'll get some extra practice using it. You need a fully shielded pair of safety goggles. something that's gonna not only protect you from anything that could come head on, but from the sides as well. Because of COVID, we'll be wearing masks in lab and on campus. You're going to need a V629 master lock. And the reason why you need this one is just in case you have some equipment or maybe some chemicals that your group needs and you're absent, we can just unlock it because it has a little key unlock in the back. And that's why we require that specific lock. You're also going to need a laboratory coat. And note that it might be possible to get these items 2 through 5 from the stock room at the chemistry department for free. But that's dependent on supplies. So if supplies last, then you can get them. But you have to wait until we meet on campus to see. So that won't be until our first meeting in 4 weeks. Let's see. You're going to need some sort of a notebook for lab, so you can jot down some of the data that will be taken in lab. And for the notebook, it can just be a cheap spiral bound where you can pull out the pages and include them in your reports, or it could be a serious laboratory notebook. Whichever you have, whichever's easiest, you should bring. Also, you're going to need a flash drive because in Chem 201 we do a few computer interfaced experiments where you'll be taking lots of data, and you're going to need to store that data, work that data up in a spreadsheet, probably like Excel. And you might need to share that data with your lab partner. So you should bring this flash drive for copying the data from the computers in the lab to either your computer at home or maybe the computer lab that we have on the 4th floor. Any questions on any of that so far? All right, so we're still good. Okay, so it goes on in the syllabus to talk about the 10 experiments that you're going to perform. It talks about the grading and the attendance, so you can read through that. Attendance is important, so you have to make sure that you attend when you can. Let's see, safety policy. When we get into lab, I'm going to customize this for the laboratory. In the meantime, you can read through the safety. There's some good stuff in there, some things that are pretty intuitive, and you would never do those in the lab, but it's there in black and white for you to check out. And then at the end, there's a little blurb about notebooks and reports, and that's pretty much the syllabus. Any questions on that? All righty. Then let's take a look at the schedule and how to read that schedule. So like someone pointed out, we have every day of the week that there's a meeting. The first 2 weeks, of course, are in Zoom. The third week, Monday, Tuesday, classes meet, and Wednesday, Thursday, but here we have off. So we're meeting now on this Friday, and we're going to talk about the electronic spreadsheet and computer graphing lab that you don't have to upload for your report until the 13th. So you have 2 weeks to do that. And in fact, since we don't meet until the next week, I could extend that if you need time, but I don't think you will once you take a look at the assignment. So that's not a big deal. All right. Let's see. The next week is when we'll talk more about preparing for the lab, and then we have the holiday, and then this is the first time we'll meet in lab, so we'll be checking in person, and that's when you can find out if the stock room has any equipment available. I'm kind of doubtful because the other classes, the Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursday classes will have already checked in. So they're going to have gone through any of that free material, but who knows? You never know. There might be some locks or aprons or goggles left. So essentially, what the schedule says is what the stock room is going to have out in the laboratory, and what the labs are going to be focusing on for the different weeks, and when those labs are due. So that report should be uploaded by March 6th. And usually these dates here are like a Sunday night before the next week of labs. Any questions on the schedule? No questions? All right. Awesome. Then let's take a look at that first lab and get you guys started on it. So here's where your assignments are. That first lab here is electronic spreadsheet and computer graphing. Then the next lab is kinetics. Then the next one is equilibrium, and so forth. But anyway, let's talk about this first one. Now, if you have your lab manual, then you don't have to download this copy. But if you don't have the lab manual, then this is where you get it, right here for the first lab. This pre-lab quiz I have up here, like other quizzes for this class, you'll note doesn't go into your grade directly. What this helps you, though, when you do the pre-lab quizzes, is it helps you prepare your report so you get full credit. It kind of points you towards areas where you might not have a strong understanding. And so I made these pre-lab quizzes from experience in the past, and I noticed that students could use some help in there. So let's take a look real quick at this quiz. So it's only 3 questions. And I think you can submit it a couple times and you know, for the highest points, but the points don't go directly into your grade anyway, like I said. So anyway, this first question here, it says the pH of a 15.25 molar solution of H plus is, and then they give you the definition of pH, which is a mathematical equation. So you have to take minus the log of 15.25. Now, why do this? Because in this first electronic spreadsheet and computer graphing lab, what you're supposed to learn is not only how to use Excel to work up experimental data, but also learn how to plot and make relationships to kinetics, and learn some other things that you're going to have to know for the rest of the term. So one of the things that we're going to need to know is how to keep track of significant figures. And it's kind of weird when you take the log of a number, you don't generate a number. It's kind of a beastie thing that has two parts. And that thing that you generate has a characteristic and a mantissa. And so you can look up this definition, but essentially what it's going to tell you is that when you take the log of a number, you generate something with a characteristic and a mantissa. The characteristic is to the left of the decimal. It's kind of a power of 10 holders for log. And the mantissa is the value that's to the right of the decimal point. And it's in the mantissa that holds all the significant figures. So I see that this value has 4 significant figures. So my mantissa has to have 4 places. And so I know this isn't it because it has 5. And so I know this is my answer. And some people, if they didn't understand this characteristic in mantissa, which is the result of taking the log of a number, then they might choose this one. And that's not correct. So like I said, these quizzes just point to possible weak areas in understanding. So it's just for your benefit. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, so now what you need to do for this lab, essentially, if you read the lab manual, it takes you through a tutorial for the first 9 pages of that file. In fact, here, let me pop it up on the screen. Okay, so this is the lab manual here, and it talks about, you know, what the purpose of doing this lab is and how it connects to kinetics. And then you get into a part where it takes you through how to use Excel. And some of you guys may know how to use Excel better than others. So this gives us all an opportunity to get on the same page and get caught up, so everybody is pretty familiar with Excel at the same level. But anyway, they talk about global definitions and relative definitions and how to generate data based off of experimental data, and make sure that you have the appropriate number of significant figures in your data and so forth. So all of this part here is a tutorial, and they talk about how to plot data and how to fit those plots to mathematical functions and how to format your plot and so forth. Now, your assignment that you have to load up in a couple of weeks starts here on page 9 of the lab manual, section 10. So here's the instructions. If you have a hard copy, then you're set. If you don't have a hard copy of these instructions, that's okay. You can download it like we just did. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is take you through this. It says, find this Excel file with experimental data, and then do all of these things and upload that for your report. Okay, what I want to talk about today is 1 through 7. I want to leave this 8 part for next time because that'll give you a chance to catch up in your lecture and talk about kinetics and rate laws and things like that. And this part will become a lot clearer after you get a few lectures in that material. All right, so let's take a look at that file. This is the file that you can download from Canvas. Maybe I should show you where that file is. Okay, let's get back here. Okay, so here's your Canvas homepage. Here's the assignment section. There's the ESCG, the first lab. This is the pre-lab quiz. And here's the file that you need right here for the report. So in your lab manual, it refers to this file as ESCG1. So this is the one that you're looking for. And that's what this file is right here. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to take you through this and address those questions 1 through 7. So you're going to want to read that. It starts on page 9 in your lab manual. The first thing you need to do is enter your name in A1 and your CRN number or the course number. And for our class, let's see, I got it here. The course number is, I think I have it here, sorry. It's 87681. So okay, so I'm just going to go through this and talk about what it's asking you to do. It also says in number 1 to adjust the columns for the time column. So it has a 10th. So what you need to do for Excel is select just the numbers usually. I find oftentimes if you select the titles in Excel, it gets confused. Once I've selected those numbers, I can go over to this button here and press it once or as many times as I need to. And now this is what the instruction says, time column to the tenths. And that's pretty much it for 1. Number 2 in your instructions says to complete these columns and make sure that they have the appropriate number of significant figures. So what does that mean? Well, these columns here, the log of the concentration and 1 over concentration, use this experimental data. So these generated columns of data should reflect the appropriate number of significant figures. So from my tutorial, I know how to put in equations and save lots of time so I don't have to use my calculator for each one of these operations. So I put an equal sign here, and as soon as I do that, Excel gets excited, opens up this equation window because it knows you're going to put in an equation. Then I start typing that equation, L, and as soon as I type the equation, Excel wants to help me out. So I can go down and I can find what I want in that list, or I can keep typing until it narrows down to what I want. Then I click on it and Excel says, okay, what do you want to take the log of? And so I could put in the address for the number, which would be B6 or I could just come over here and click on it and Excel puts it in for me and then return. And so I don't have to take out my calculator at all. It just does the calculation for me. The great power of Excel, as you know from doing the tutorial, is that you can do a whole bunch of calculations at once. So I take my cursor, put it in the corner, it turns dark. I click, left click, and fill down. And it does all those calculations for me in one click. And that's part of the power of Excel, and that's what you're going to learn. All right. Now, I can easily do that here as well. Equals 1 over, click this, return, and then do the same thing. I guess we're having some company. Got the dog pound over here. Hey, you guys, I've been doing a lot of jabbering. Do you got any questions?
Yeah, Professor. Just generally speaking about the format of these labs. So we have all these labs down on the schedule. We are coming into the lab or to Zoom basically to complete the lab during this time.
Oh no, you can complete the lab anytime you want, at least for this one, right? Because this one's pretty much an online lab.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, but the other labs are going to be, you know, face to face, and you're going to get to play around with chemicals and stuff. So we kind of start slow in the beginning, just for a few different reasons. And we've always done that, even when we did meet face to face. For example, this first lab we would be doing in the computer room at Mesa College. So we wouldn't even be in the lab for the first week, because historically there's a lot of shuffling between lab classes. A lot of people are trying to get in the classes or get out of classes, or you're not sure if they're going to show up or they can be dropped. So in the past, we've always started kind of slow in Chem 201 lab. And so that's why you have 2 weeks to do this lab, and it doesn't really take that long. So anyway, I hope I answered that question. Any other questions? Or you can ask that one again.
Where's the best place to purchase Excel? Because I've always used Google Sheets, but
Oh, you know what? You don't have to purchase Excel. You can use, if you know how to do the same things with Google Sheets, then by all means, just do it with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking that question. Anyone else? Now, Excel will be provided to you in those on-campus computers in our computer room. But you can use Google Sheets there too, right? So that's not a problem. You can use Google Sheets anywhere. I'm just not an expertise in using it. I mean, I have no experience using Google Sheets. So if you did have a problem with it, then I wouldn't be able to help you. With Excel, I could. So. All right, any other questions? All right, so then I'm just going to keep on going here real quick. And if you have questions, just holler. But we're almost done, number 2, for the assignment. We have to make sure that these generated values reflect the number of significant figures here. Now, I see in the experimental data that they gave you, these have 5 significant figures, and then it goes down to 4 right there. This here has 3 significant figures. Remember the mantissa and the character deal. So I need to get more than 3 significant figures for those. Right up to there's 5. So I can change that. Okay, so now that has 5 significant figures. This one still has 3 and it needs 4. So I have to change these guys as well. Now that has 4 significant figures. And these have 4. Now these guys have the same problem. From there to there, all have to have 5 significant figures. If my eyes aren't deceiving me. So, oops. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. And then these guys need to have 4. Whoops. All right, so now I think we've addressed everything in number 2. Number 3 says print a copy of this. Well, you don't have to print anything. If you're going to load it up in the Canvas, then just load a copy of this file and include that in your report. And then it wants you to do the same thing with the data and formulas. So you need to know from the tutorial how to show formulas here. And the way you do it is you go up to formulas and then you just click on that button and it shows the formulas instead of the numbers. And so you can include a copy of that in your report. Just so we know you know how to do that. And then after it gets to number 5, it asks you to start making plots. So the way I do plots is I just select the values so Excel doesn't get confused of the plot that I want. Then you insert scatter plot, just following the tutorial. And now I can change the title to something appropriate, like concentration versus time. I can add titles. And you want to make sure that when you're preparing your plots for your report, that you follow the tutorial and appropriately label your X and Y axis and make sure that you include the units in parentheses. Okay, so that's concentration with molarity units. Here I have time in seconds. Okay, and so I'm just looking at number 5 on page 9 of your assignment and following the directions. And so when I grade any of your labs, what I do is I go back to the directions and just check to see that you did everything in the lab manual that it wanted you to do. So it's kind of easy for grading. All right, so now I have to, according to the lab manual, fit this to a line if it's a linear trend, but it's not, it's curving. So I don't need to fit it to a mathematical function. So now I plot the next one that it wants, which is the log of the concentration versus time. The X is always selected first. And now I have to skip this concentration row and select this one. One way to do that with Excel is to press Control and then left click and select all those values. And then let up, and then we can insert the plot just like we did before. And you can title it, make sure it has the appropriate units and so forth. But now we see that this plot, unlike the previous one, does trend linearly. So we're going to need to put an equation on this. So that's where the tutorial came in handy. And now I know how to add an equation. I can right click any point in the plot, add a trend line, come over here, make sure it's linear. That's the one that I want. I want to display the formula, and I want to display the goodness of fit value, or R squared. The closer that is to 1, the better fit to a line that experimental data is. And I see that this is a generic formula, so it has the Y in it and the X, and according to the tutorial, that's not the way that you should present a plot with its equation. So I have to replace the Y with what I'm plotting, which is the log of the concentration. So I can put that would be more appropriate than Y. It doesn't have units, so I don't have to put anything in parentheses. The slope has units though. Y equals mx plus b, that's the slope, that first number. And the units for the slope is rise over run. Here I have a y-axis made of values from taking the log of a number, so it's unitless. So y is unitless, and over here is time in seconds. So it's 1 over seconds is the units of the slope. X I get rid of, and I put in t because time is what I'm plotting, and its units is second. And b, this value over here, is also unitless because it carries the units of the y-axis, and as we know, the y-axis doesn't have units. Now, I know this equation has the right units because it's consistent, and all your equations have to be consistent. And what I mean by that is that the units for each term in the equation have to be the same. Now, this is an interesting example because y is unitless. So that has to equal a term here, the slope times x, and that has to be unitless. And then b, of course, is unitless. So look at the units of the slope, 1 over s. Units of time is s. So sure enough, they cancel out, and we get a unitless value equals a unitless value plus a unitless value. So the equation is consistent, at least in units, and that's always a good thing. All right, I'm not going to do this last one for you. It comes out as a curvature upward, so you wouldn't have to fit an equation for the time versus 1 over concentration plot. Now, once I get through that, I'm all the way through number 7 in the lab manual instructions, and that's where I wanted to stop today. So are there any questions on anything before we break?
So that second scatter plot, if we just left it how you have it, is that good?
Nope.
Or
It doesn't have a title, and the axes aren't titled either.
okay,
And you have to check to see that it has the appropriate number of significant figures. So let's check that. For the slope, that's the rise over the run. This has 3 significant figures. If I look over here, my time goes from 2 to 3. So that's 1 extra sig fig. And I always give 1 extra sig fig. That's no problem. If you have 2 extras, that's too much information, and that extra 1 is just nonsense. the second of the extra ones. If you have one less, then it's not enough information. So for this, I'll take 0.071 or 0.0714. Now for this guy over here, the intercept, the number of sig figs in concentration ranges between 5 and 4. And it has 5, so that's extra, one extra, and so that's fine. So yeah, that's fine. The equation's fine, but the plot, you still need to title it and title the axes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions? I'm sorry, that was a long-winded answer. Okay, then I'm gonna stop my share, and I'm gonna stop the recording.